What you're going to watch me build today is an assembly table. I've built a couple of assembly tables in the past, but I've never put much thought into it. As I progressed in this woodworking journey, I've realized how efficiency really matters, especially for someone who doesn't have much time. So I set out to build an assembly table with some thought. As you see here, I've modeled it in Fusion 360. I've thought out each compartment and what I want to store in there with some flexibility for the future. This video is going to be a 2 or 3 part series. For the first part, which you're going to see today, is me building out the main frame, the carcass, and the tabletop. In the parts to follow, I'll add drawers for some organization. I'll work on the tabletop and add some T-tracks or some type of clamping mechanism. I'll also look to accessorize and add areas where I can store tools and gadgets that I'll need during assembly. The table will also serve as an outfeed table for my table saw. So all in all, this is going to be a cool build and I hope you enjoy. So let's get to the build. What you'll be watching me do is mill down some 2x4s to the appropriate thickness for my frame. From the joiner to the planer to the table saw, I ripped down all my boards to the appropriate width and length. Man, this milling process took forever. At least it seemed like it was forever. Generated a lot of sawdust. Look at the bag just fill up. I think I filled up a whole bag and a half. A lot of milling, but once that was done, it was time to put the frame together. Following the drawing, I started my glue up for the frame pieces. The assembly was quite easy because I had planned everything out. The main stretches will be put together to form a lap joint at the corners that the horizontal pieces would attach to. As you can see during assembly, there's a 3/4 inch rebate that's left on the inside of the frame. This is there so that the main carcass, the plywood carcass, would fit right in, and this is something you'll see a little later. I went with this lamination method because it meant that I didn't have to remove any material. I want to give a shout out to Powelson Woodworking. He really inspired this build. Once the frame was complete, it was time for me to turn my attention to the carcass. So I broke down all the plywood sheets using my drawing. Even though I had the drawing, I made sure to reference my frame so that I could make sure that the carcass would fit perfectly. I've got to say, having a cut list and drawing is really beneficial. I mean, when I was breaking out the plywood, everything was efficient and I knew every cut that I had to make, and it's definitely a game changer for me as far as my process goes. The software I use is a free software called Cut List Optimizer. For free software, it definitely checks all the boxes. I've been using it for a while now and I definitely recommend it. Dan, who runs the channel The Noob Woodworker on YouTube, has a tutorial video on it. Something you can definitely check out if you're looking to learn the ins and outs of the program. He definitely goes into a in-depth analysis of the program, what it's capable of. So check that out. Once all the plywood panels were broken down and all labeled, it was time to assemble the carcass. I didn't really have a set plan on how I was going to assemble the carcass, so I just decided to just work on the divider panel. Once I had that assembled and standing up, I would be able to add on the sides and the top. I took the time to lay out all the panels in their positioning, and then I proceeded on the assembly. Once I was done with one side of the middle panel, I stood it up and worked on the back side. And once that was done, it was time to attach the sides and the top, all using pocket hole screws. Once the plywood carcass was finished, it was time to bring together the frame and the carcass. Thankfully, the carcass fit perfectly. I guess that's what a little planning does for you. So once the carcass was fitted in, it was time to attach that as well with pocket hole screws. I decided not to glue the joints. I don't know. I decided to try out the strength of the pocket hole screws. I've always gotten into the habit of gluing and then using pocket hole screws, but I decided to just see the mechanical strength of the pocket hole screws on this build. Hopefully it'll hold up for the long haul. Once the main body was finished, it was time to move on to the feet. For this build, I decided to use leveling feet to be able to adjust the height of the table so that it can work perfectly as an outfeed table. I also decided to add on these cool casters. They actually engage and disengage so that you can roll it out as you please, but then you disengage and then the leveling feet will take over. Once the main body, casters, and leveling feet were done, it was time to turn my attention to the tabletop. To make the tabletop, I laminated 2 sheets of ply to give it some rigidity. I also added hardboard on top that I can remove anytime I want. Before adding the ply, I had to put a support stretcher in the middle. This will support the plywood so that there won't be any flexing down the middle of the tabletop. Once the stretcher was in, I made sure to check the level. Everything seemed to be on the same plane, so it was time to attach the tabletop. I didn't glue the lamination yet because I'm not sure exactly what my tabletop is gonna end up looking like in the future. I know I have plans to add T-tracks and other fastening or hold down mechanisms. So until I decide that, I will just screw these, countersinking the screws between the 2 layers. Again, I add the hardboard as a top layer to kind of give the tabletop some protection. I will not attach it permanently, so I can always remove it and replace it when I need it. At this point in the build, we've hit the end of part 1. The tabletop is assembled, the cast is installed. I have a solid top to work on while I plan out the drawer configurations and other accessories that I plan on adding on to the assembly table. Hope you guys are enjoying the build so far and looking forward to part 2. Thanks for watching the build, and please subscribe, and don't forget, charity builds lives.